But PEMF therapy doesn't do that. PEMF therapy is shielded. It doesn't actually contact the skin with an electrical charge. What it does, though, is it induces the charge in the body. In other words, the magnetic field causes the body to produce the charge. So that's called inductively coupled electrical stimulation. And that's based on a law of physics called Faraday's law.
Welcome to the PEMF Effect, where breakthrough science helps take control of your health. I'm Dr. William Pawluk, and I'm here to guide you in tapping into the power of PEMF therapy for recovery, vitality, and total body wellness. From overcoming chronic pain, optimizing brain health, boosting energy, and aging with strength, this podcast is your path to cutting-edge solutions for lifelong well-being. If you're ready to move beyond symptom management and tap into your body's natural healing ability, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Today's episode is a previously recorded session from a summit where I was a guest speaker.
Hi, I'm Dr. Roger Murphy, and I'm your host of the Freedom from Fibromyalgia Summit. And I have Dr. William Pawluk here. Dr. Pawluk is a magnetic field expert. In fact, he's considered the foremost expert in North America. He's been involved in this technology with research and clinical applications for over 30 years. His best-selling book is Supercharge Your Health with PEMF Therapy. And Dr. Pawluk is a board-certified physician. He's a MD, and I believe you have a master's in science as well, if I think I remember that right. Too. And he was affiliated both with Johns Hopkins and University of Maryland in an academic positions. 30 years he was in practice as a holistic physician, and now his attention really has turned full-time to really helping those understand what magnetic field therapy is and the role it can play in increasing your overall health in many layers. And we're going to talk about that. So, hey, Bill, thank you so much for being part of this summit.
Thank you for having me on your summit.
Hey, pulse electromagnetic field therapy, or MTF to simplify it. This is something that's been around. I mean, you've been doing the research on it for over 30 years. Why, first thing, what is it? Tell us what it is. This is something that I think is a game changer for so many people, but most people have never heard of it.
Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room first.
Yeah.
We'll talk about what's the difference between PEMF therapy and EMFs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
People always ask me, well, isn't this EMFs? Yeah. Isn't this dangerous? So, well, there's a very different way of producing these magnetic fields. Both are magnetic fields. EMFs are what I call open-ended magnetic fields. They're open source or open focus. What they do is they basically get like cell towers for cell phones, radio, radar, television. All of these waves, basically what they are is broadcast waves, get broadcast into the environment. So they're open source. Magnetic field therapy, and also they're designed for communication. They're not designed for therapy. Unfortunately, the body gets in the way. It has to be in the way of the wave, if you will, and get caught up in the wave. So they are risky because they do have waves, which means they do have true frequencies. And as a result, what happens with waves, depending on the length of the wave, they can get absorbed.
Yeah.
So if a wave is long enough, usually over 100 megahertz, if you're using it in terms of frequencies, it's over 100 megahertz, then it's going to be long enough to go through the body completely. But if it's shorter than that, and gigahertz is what most cell phones are, high megahertz or gigahertz, and as a result, the wavelengths are so short they get absorbed by the body.
Yeah,
and that's why a microwave oven works. Those waves are absorbed by whatever's in that microwave oven, and that causes heating, and the heating then destroys tissue or causes damage. So that's EMFs. I don't call them electromagnetic fields. I call them environmental magnetic fields. And then the environmental magnetic fields are dangerous based on the dose. If you're sitting next to a microwave tower, well, then you get kind of getting blasted.
Yeah.
If you happen to be a lineman working around that kind of stuff, well, you're getting blasted. For most people, the degree of exposure is relatively small. If you happen to have a smartphone or that's where for the electric companies, a smart meter on the side of your house or on the side of your apartment building or you're getting blasted by EMFs on a regular basis, and that's not good for you. But if your microwave tower is 10 miles away, 5G tower is 100 feet away, that's different. But a 5G tower is 2 miles away, that's different. So the dosing then becomes important.
Yeah.
I really don't care about those. And there's lots of books and lots of people talking about the risks and the dangers of EMFs. I want to talk about the benefits. So PEMFs, pulsed electromagnetic fields, are designed in a very different way. They're designed by a control unit. So they have a control unit that pushes current into a wire. And that current then goes into the wire and then goes into a coil. And there are different sizes or applicators, what we call applicators, different sizes of those. It could be whole body, it could be tiny little applicators, or they could be, cover larger areas like a whole chest or a whole belly. So pulsed magnetic fields are made by current from a control unit pushed through a wire. And as the current is flowing through the wire, it's what we call the right-hand rule. So my thumb is the current flowing through the wire. The magnetic field is perpendicular to that current. So every time that current pulses in that wire, you get a magnetic field, but it collapses. So it's a closed circuit. It doesn't go out into space. It only goes out to the extent that that current allows it to go. And so obviously, if it's a very weak current, that's going to produce a very weak magnetic field, a very small magnetic field. If it's a strong signal going into that wire, it can produce a magnetic field that can go out for 3 or 4 feet, in fact. Okay, so PEMFs are designed for therapeutic use, right? And so they're designed to be able to go into the body and back out again. They don't stay in the body. The wavelengths are not long enough to get absorbed and cause heating. Although there are PEMF systems that are designed for that purpose too. So if you want to burn a wart, or you want to burn something on the skin, a lesion on the skin, you can use radio frequency, extremely short wavelength EMFs to burn the tissue. So that's done on purpose. What we want to avoid is obviously the inadvertent exposure. But with PEMFs, you don't have to worry about that. For the most part, you don't have to worry about it. The ones that burn the tissue, you're not going to buy them because they're $30,000, $40,000 typically. So most of the magnetic fields I work with then are the safe ones, and they're designed to help with the body's own healing process. So again, it's produced by a current flowing through a wire. It's perpendicular to the flow of the current, and it sort of comes in and out of the wire. And then once the magnetic field goes into the body, once it comes out of the wire, it goes into the body. So in other words, if I did try to cook something with a pulse magnetic field system, it's not going to happen, right? In fact, you might not even notice anything, although you could potentially see some differences in the water. So the water may actually taste a little better. You may help your plants grow better, may make your food taste a little better if you use magnetically treated water. But again, it's completely safe. So it's a very different concept in the way it works. Yeah. And as a result, what we found is that those magnetic fields that are produced by PEMFs go into the body. The body is like air to a magnetic field. It does not exist to the magnetic field. The magnetic field doesn't care about the body. Nothing in the body is going to stop the magnetic field. It's not going to use it up. It's not going to change it or alter it. Although if you had metal in your body, it may change the angularity of the magnetic field going through it. Obviously, if you have pacemakers or you have other electronics in your body, it may make a difference. If you have a prosthetic knee or hip, then it can make a difference, but not usually a whole lot. And most of the time, people can use magnetic fields. In fact, they probably should be using magnetic fields if they have metal in their bodies.
Yeah, this technology was really started, or I guess made more popular, I guess I should say, by veterinarian medicine. So, vets started using this. Isn't that right? They were using it for horses. That was some of the beginning technology with this. Now, it's evolved, over the years. I mean, this is 30, like you said, 30 years ago, but that was some of the beginning of this 20 years ago or so. And
well,
now
actually, I wrote a book about magnetic therapy in Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
So I collaborated with an MD PhD from the Czech Republic. He translated a lot of that Russian and Eastern European literature. And the book was published in 1980-ish, early 90s.
Yeah.
And that was already 30 years later. And that was a review of the literature in Eastern Europe from 30 years earlier.
Yeah.
Yes, magnetic therapy has been around for a very long time. And a lot of it was actually, if you want to call it veterinarian, but a lot of the original research was done in animals, but it was done in mice or rats or petri dishes, et cetera.
Yeah.
But yes, because of that literature, because of the origins of it, veterinarians were aware of the studies because veterinarians were involved in producing those studies.
Mm-hmm.
But the veterinary community was probably the first community really to get aware, to develop awareness of it.
Yeah.
Are you tired of living with chronic pain? Medication only masks the symptoms, but real healing starts at the cellular level. I'm Dr. William Pawluk, the leading expert on PEMF therapy. Pulsed electromagnetic field therapy is a science-backed, drug-free solution that helps reduce pain, speed up recovery, and improve overall health, right from the comfort of your home. Take advantage of an exclusive 10% discount on drpawluk.com PEMF systems. Visit drpawluk.com, that's drpawluk.com, to register and claim your savings. This limited time offer is available only to registered listeners. Don't miss your chance to experience the benefits. Terms and conditions do apply. Don't just manage pain, transform your health. Visit drpawluk.com today and let's get started on your healing journey together.
And so the other thing that the FDA has approved is for depression, so mood disorders, and then fractures that won't heal. So, if you have a broken bone, that's something that we've seen the research that shows that it will help that fracture to heal up. We're getting more and more researchers getting not only published, but now actually being used to then to decide that, yeah, this is the best therapy for you for chronic pain, something like fibromyalgia. We're starting to see the results that are pretty clear that this technology is something that is much more than using it on a horse or someone with depression or low moods or for a fracture. There's this technology is and the research that's supporting it is quite impressive.
Well, and I published, you mentioned one book, Supercharge Your Health.
Yeah.
I published another book called Power Tools for Health. That was my first book after the European book. And there I reviewed over 500 studies were in that book that I quoted, and described all the different actions of magnetic field therapies, which you won't find anywhere else, because it takes a lot of work to pull together all that data to put it into a concise, specific location. Mm-hmm. What that shows is what you're saying, that magnetic field therapy has a lot of value. And it's hard to figure out what that value is. And so you have to kind of go out and find that research yourself, unfortunately.
Yeah. So how does it work in the body? Someone's got maybe just chronic pain. Give us some examples of some different conditions and what's happening in the body with this technology.
All right. So magnetic field therapy works primarily, there's probably other effects going on too, but those are so subtle and there's a lot less research about them. So I'm not going to talk about those. Most of the benefits of PEMF therapy have to do with charge induction in the body. So we call it, the scientific term for it is inductively coupled electrical stimulation. So if you apply a TENS machine or you apply current directly to the tissue, you can burn the tissue with that current. In a sense, that's electrocution. But PEMF therapy doesn't do that. PEMF therapy is shielded. It doesn't actually contact the skin with an electrical charge. What it does, though, is it induces the charge in the body. In other words, the magnetic field causes the body to produce the charge. So that's called inductively coupled electrical stimulation. And that's based on a law of physics called Faraday's law. So Faraday's law of charge induction. So Faraday discovered this a long time ago, the 1800s. That if you pass a magnetic field through a coil, in the circuit of that coil, you have a light bulb. And if you close that circuit and you pass a magnetic field through that wire, you'll initiate charge. In other words, you'll initiate current, and the current turns on the light bulb. So essentially, that's what we're doing in the body. The magnetic field, as it passes through the body, interacts with all the ionic charges in the body, and any charges, any polarities of charge that are on tissues of any kind, whether it's proteins or fats or again, nerves or ion solutions, electrolyte solutions, all of that is all of a sudden activated by the magnetic field. And when that happens, then the body says, oh, I got more energy. What am I going to do with all this energy? It does whatever it wants. So we know, again, in the Supercharge Your Health book and the Power Tools for Health book, there are at least 27 different actions of magnetic fields in the body. So once that field is going into the body, you produce charge, the body reacts, and now the body improves circulation. It decreases pain. So magnetic field therapy is like, in a sense, like Tylenol or even codeine, that it causes pain reduction naturally without doing anything else.
Yeah, no, with no side effects.
And with no side effects,
Right.
typically with no side effects.
Yeah.
But it increases circulation, decreases inflammation, stimulates stem cells, stimulates ATP, stimulates nitric oxide. There's a whole lot, and augments the immune system, balances the immune response. So there's about 25 different actions. And the body decides what it's going to do with that extra charge that you just produced.
Yeah.
And then it goes from there.
So one of the things that I hear from my patients that are using this therapy is that they do have more energy. And I think part of that, as you just mentioned, the increase in the ATP, because we know with fibromyalgia, they tend to have less mitochondria, the power plants of the cells. So the cells are not really working like they should, not communicate with one another like they could. And they have a lot of problems with decoupling, where the mitochondria are just, even though they have them, they're dysfunctional. Right. And this is a tool, I always, biochemically, I'm trying to get my patients to eat correctly, to get their mitochondria up, to take supplements to do that. But this is another way to do it. And also the big benefit is blocking the pain. So as you were talking briefly before we started recording, with fibromyalgia, they have this low pain threshold, this allodynia, and they have a central sensitization pain syndrome where pain is magnified. And as I was sharing with you, one time I used to do just hands-on chiropractic. Hadn't done that in a long time. But what I found when I started working with chiropractic patients is you could not adjust them. You could not manipulate them. You could not PT them, use a modality and get them to be able to overcome their fibromyalgia. It just didn't work. And a lot of times they couldn't handle the actual modality. One of the things I love about this therapy is oftentimes you can't even feel it. So, and when I've had it done, oftentimes you're just there, you got the machine on and you don't feel anything. And now when you get off the table, if you're using a table or using a device, then you might realize, wow, where's that neck pain gone? But for the most part, you really don't feel this technology.
Well, it depends on the magnetic field.
Yeah.
And so this is where we have a little problem in the community of magnetic field therapy, if you will. The people who are selling these devices, people who are promoting them and so on, is the range. And I go through some of this in the Supercharge Your Health book. The very low intensity magnetic systems, medium intensity, high intensity, and very high intensity. And then you decide whether you want to just treat locally or you want to treat a whole area, or you decide you want to treat the whole body.
Yeah.
And I would in fibromyalgia, you have to treat the whole body.
Yeah.
If you're not treating the whole body, you're just not getting adequate treatment, because we now know, we used to say, well, fibromyalgia is mostly a centralization problem. But now, as you just said, it's a mitochondrial problem in all the tissues. And we also talked about this before we started recording, is that it's related to the paucity, again, a limited number of C fibers. And they become hypersensitive to pain, right, to painful stimuli, to temperature, to heat, to cold, to pressure. So all these fibers now are hyper turned on. And when they're hyper turned on, that signals go into the brain, even more signals go to the brain, and that increases the centralization problem. So you've got a compounding problem going on both peripherally and centrally. So you can't get by just getting a little magnet to put on your elbow and take care of your problem, or get a little magnet and put it on the side of your head to take care of the problem. You have to do it properly. So the people who are out there selling very low intensity magnetic field systems, mostly they're not doing much for you.
Yeah.
Mostly they're not. And when you stop the treatment, the pain comes back because they haven't cured you. Right? So what you have to do is you have to get the right intensity of magnetic field to do the job. I have a blog on my website at drpawluk.com about adenosine. So adenosine is not only makes ATP, but adenosine receptors on neutrophils are also responsible for decreasing inflammation. So you can decrease chronic inflammation by using magnetic field therapy on those adenosine receptors. But there's a rub. You have to have the right intensity. So research has shown us that the ideal or optimal magnetic field intensity at the adenosine receptor, because it's sitting on white cells, means anywhere in the body. That means you need 15 Gauss optimally. A lot of these whole body magnetic systems, all right, I'll name names: Beamer, IMRS, QRS, Medithera, all of these very low intensity, OMI, all of these are very low intensity. So if you don't know the intensity of your device, right, you're not doing yourself justice, and you're probably not getting the benefit that you need. So if you want to do treatment deeper into the body, then you have to account for the fact that magnetic fields drop off very rapidly. So a 4,000 Gauss magnetic field will be down to 15 Gauss in 6 inches.
Wow.
Okay. So, and you want to have 15, because that's what the research shows you need to have to decrease inflammation. So then you have to kind of calculate, and there's a table in the adenosine blog on drpawluk.com, and there's an appendix in the Supercharge Your book that shows you the intensities you need and how far you're trying to treat. So you try to treat across the brain for centralization. From typically across the brain is about 6 inches. You need a 4,000 Gauss magnetic field to be able to deliver 15 Gauss to the other side of the brain. You'll deliver more on as you go through, but you want to have a minimum of 15 at the other side to get the best results for yourself. So that means you have to have the right intensity of magnetic field. So if you have a magnetic system and you don't know the intensity, go find out. And if they won't tell you the intensity, I'm sorry for you. You spend a lot of money getting something you probably don't even know, how much is going to help you. So these low intensity magnetic systems actually work on acupuncture points. That's how I got started with magnetic field therapy, is to replace acupuncture. I started using magnets on acupuncture points. I was trained in acupuncture. I started using magnets on acupuncture points because people wouldn't do needles in 1990. Acupuncture wasn't well known in 1990. So what we found is that magnetic field therapy stimulates the acupuncture points. I actually do a workshop, a 6-hour workshop for acupuncturists on how to use magnetic field therapy in their practices. Because acupuncture doesn't heal. Acupuncture helps the body to rebalance and to deals with sensation and symptoms, but it doesn't do a really good job of healing. So magnetic field therapy does acupuncture, but at the same time, it's doing all the other things that it's doing to heal. And that's the goal, is to eventually heal the tissue so that the problem doesn't come back.
Yeah. I've got to ask this question. What's the difference between pulse magnetic field therapy and a TENS unit or a microstem? Some of these are, people kind of lump these together, and they're not the same.
So let me answer that question. But first of all, let's clarify what PEMF stands for. Pulse electromagnetic field. Many people call it pulse electromagnetic frequencies. It's not frequencies. Frequencies are the power lines, or the waves that go out into space. These are pulse rates. We often call them frequencies, but they're not. They're pulse rates. So the question again has to do with, repeat the question. I'm sorry, I got distracted.
What is the difference? How is this difference between a TENS unit, what people are very familiar with, and some people are familiar with microcurrent as well, which is
microcurrent. Yeah. All right. So I was trained in microcurrent as well, and I stopped using it because it's microcurrent. What happens with current in the body? It's absorbed.
Yeah.
It doesn't penetrate very deep. So I call TENS machines basically stomping on your toe when you have a headache, right? You're distracting the nervous system.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, that's kind of how I would explain it when I had my physical clinic. I had a clinic and would tell people, and they ask, well, what is this doing? And I said, oh, this is, it's like when you bump your elbow and you'll rub it out. That's what this is doing. It's overwhelming these receptors, these nerve receptors. And now the
traffic going to the brain gets blocked, essentially, or fooled. Something else is stronger than what you had.
Yeah.
And so your brain forgets what the previous problem was.
Right.
So compared to other therapies, whether it's laser or microcurrent or TENS machines, PEMF therapies, the biggest benefit and difference between these PEMF therapies and other therapies is they're deep.
Yeah.
If you buy a very weak magnetic system, it's going to be very shallow, so it's not going to produce much benefit going deep. But a PEMF goes all the way through the body. You just have to have a strong enough magnetic field that's going to go all the way through. And as I mentioned already, you want to deliver at least 15 Gauss all the way through, because then you're doing the most work. And besides that, I think people make this mistake very, very commonly. They think of the problem they have. and I want to treat this problem. That's my goal. I want to treat this problem. Unfortunately, well, fortunately, actually, you have a tool with magnetic field therapy that does a lot more than that. So while it may help you with that problem, I hear this all the time. People had back pain that they weren't paying attention to because their neuropathy in their feet was worse. Right? Then all of a sudden their back pain got better. Actually, it got better before their feet got better. So all sorts of problems in other parts of the body begin to go away, and then you're left with the problem that you're trying to treat, because that problem is not getting better faster because it needs more work, right? It needs a longer period of treatment time to be able to get better, because every tissue in the body has its own cycle of ability to repair. So corneal cells repair in 24 hours. Skin takes 2 to 3 weeks. How fast does it take for an Achilles tendon rupture to heal?
Oh, months.
Never.
No, yeah, should say never. Yeah.
Right. You have to sew it back. You have to use wire to hook it back up again. So a lot of tissues of the body just never heal, and you have to keep treating because they just don't heal. Or if they do, like bones will heal. How fast does it take for a bone to heal?
No.
Years.
Oh, years. Wow.
Well, I'll explain why. So if you break a bone, not only do you break the bone, but you also tear all kinds of tissues around that area as well, right? But when you break the bone, you take the cast off in 12 weeks. And the reason you can take the cast off is now you're not going to disturb the fracture site.
Right.
But you take x-rays 2 years later, you can still see the fracture site.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's better, but you can still see it.
Yeah.
And x-rays are not that sensitive. If you did a more sensitive test, like an MRI or a CT scan, you can see the fracture site 3 or 4 years later still. So how long does it take to heal a bone? The answer is when it's healed.
Yeah.
You can have a functional extremity earlier than that, and magnetic field therapy accelerates the healing process. So we know that we can heal in half the time. I'll give you another example. Research has shown, and this is FDA approved, you're talking about this, for healing fractures that won't heal, called non-unions. The devices that were approved by the government for heal non-unions are relatively low intensity, only about 18 or 20 Gauss. So what they found is that you needed probably at least 9 to 12 hours a day of treatment with the magnetic field to heal that non-union. And they did a study with people who had these fractures and had this equipment, and they asked them how many hours a day they were doing treatment. They were recommended to do 9 hours a day. And they looked at how long it took them to heal. And what they discovered was that those that did the right amount of time, 9 hours a day or more, healed. Those that did 3 hours or less a day took double the time to heal, 6 months, and maybe even more. So the treatment time is very important based on the intensity of the magnetic field that you're using. So that's why we go back to the 15 Gauss with adenosine. If you do that calculation properly, you get the right magnetic field, you may be able to get away with doing a lot less treatment time. There is one PEMF system that's selling out there. They say all you need is 8 minutes a day. Right? Does that mean you only need to eat for 8 minutes a day?
Yeah, that would be a hard sell for me to hear. All you need is 8 minutes a day with armor. I mean, that would be hard.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a marketing gimmick.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's a marketing gimmick. Yes, for 8 minutes a day, you might be able to zoom up your acupuncture system, but you're not going to do much healing work. And if you take that fracture example that I just gave you, you're going to need to do a lot more time, maybe, than you think you should, or somebody says that you should, because ultimately, I can't determine how much time you need.
Mm-hmm.
Who determines how much time you need? Your body.
Yeah.
So once you understand your technology, once you understand what it's capable of doing, then you have some sense of and you know the pathology, then you have some sense of knowing how long this is going to take to heal and how much time you're going to need to use to get there.
Your body was designed to heal, but illness, chronic disease, stress, injury, and time can slow that process down. What if you could restore your body's natural ability to recover, recharge, and feel its best? The key to healing is giving your body the energy to repair itself. PEMF therapy does exactly that. Recharging your cells, improving circulation, reducing inflammation, and helping you function at your best. For decades, I've studied this technology, worked with hundreds of medical professionals, and helped thousands of people reduce pain, regain energy, and take control of their health. However, Not all PEMF devices are created equal. No one size fits all. We offer personalized consultations so you can find the right device for your needs, backed by real science and trusted results. If you're ready for a real solution, let's talk. Schedule a consultation at drpawluk.com. That's drpawluk.com, because real healing starts at the cellular level.
One of the things that happens with fibromyalgia, with this over ramped up sympathetic nervous system, it's just on hyper alert. And you mentioned that stimulation can be can be accentuated to where little things like a handshake or a hug or a tight blouse can set them off. And the other part of that is oftentimes, because their nervous system is so revved up, their sympathetic nervous system, they're anxious. They have a lot of anxiety. They're wired and tired. They feel exhausted. They have this nervous energy. And this technology, though, not only helps with pain, but it can help to tone down that whole process, right?
Absolutely. So if you treat the back of the neck, where the pons or medulla is, the bottom of the brain, that's the area that controls the vagal nerve, for example.
Yeah.
And the vagal nerve tones you down. It's parasympathetic. So if you did a magnetic field towards the back of the neck, you can tone down the whole body. You could actually do the same thing and have a magnetic field that's strong enough to treat your belly. Because where are the most vagal nerves in the body? In the belly. The belly is considered the second brain.
Yeah.
There are more neurons in the belly than there are in the brain. So in terms of toning down the brain, treating the brain or the nervous system or just the body in general helps to quiet down the nervous system. And then on top of that, with anxiety itself, by treating the brain, you're tuning the brain or you're toning the brain, just like you do with music, for example, Mozart versus heavy metal. If you present the brain with more Mozart, your brain's going to quiet down. So PEMF therapy quiets down the brain. So you're quieting down the brain, you're quieting down the nervous system, you're healing the inflammation in the tissues, you're healing the cause, you're helping the nerves to relax in general that are part of the inflammatory process with fibromyalgia. So you got all these different actions going on at the same time. So that's the good thing about magnetic field therapy. Turn it on and lay back and relax. It'll do its job. It's like flying, right? You get on the plane and the pilot has to do the job.
So someone with fibromyalgia that has this central sensitivity pain syndrome, where it's all over, they have a low pain threshold, is that somebody that's going to benefit the most with a mat rather than just a localized machine? I mean, these different products and they need to go to your website, drpawluk.com, right? drpawluk.com. And you have it all laid out for them. But from my patients in the past that I've recommended this, I've always suggested that they do a mat or some type of way that they're exposing the entire body to benefit the best from this.
So based on what we know and what we just talked about is that you have both a peripheral problem and a central problem.
Yeah.
And you have to treat both. You can only do that with a whole body system.
Yeah.
And most whole body systems have a small applicator, a small area applicator, and a whole body applicator. Mm-hmm. So when you buy the whole body, you're getting that benefit, but then you may need to treat separately. So most magnetic systems don't allow you to do both at the same time. So then you have to treat the whole body for all the benefits of the whole body. Never mind your inflammation for your fibromyalgia. If you got any other problems going on in that body, even though it's not causing you pain, it's another demand on the body. From an energy perspective, from an inflammation perspective, from an immune system perspective, from a circulation perspective. So all of those other demands distract the body from being able to focus where it needs to focus the most energy. So treating the brain and the body, I think, is very important. And then having the right magnetic field intensity is critical to all this.
Yeah. Well, so with fibromyalgia, really, it's a name given to describe these group of symptoms that people have. But the name doesn't cause the illness. I mean, it doesn't cause the pain, the fatigue, and these things. And ideally, I mean, really, not even ideally, but really the only way to overcome these symptoms is to get healthy. And I know that sounds so simplistic to
Absolutely.
you, the audience. Dr. Pawluk is, agreeing with me. I mean, this is the principles of holistic medicine and functional medicine is, you want to find the underlying causes and fix those. This is a tool that I believe is a good fit for fibromyalgia because I believe you've got to fix the biochemistry, the hypothalamus, the pituitary, the adrenals, these things that have gone haywire, become dysfunctional. But at the same time, you can use a modality that will greatly speed up your progress because, as you've already articulated, it's more than just pain control. It's really resetting your body's own healing systems to work like they're supposed to. It's really helps to make them work like they should be working.
Optimized. They become optimized essentially. The acupuncture system is optimized. The metabolic functions of the cells of the body become optimized. The ATP production, as you mentioned. So all of these are important. But there is a caveat. You can't build a house without bricks and mortar. You can't repair the body without proper nutrients or nutrition. You can't repair and hold the repair in a body without proper rest. Right. So you have to combine these things to make a complete house. Magnetic field therapy accelerates everything. Makes everything work better, faster. But you can't do without. And if you're trying to build bones, you have to have your calcium, you have to have your boron and silica and strontium and all. You have to have all the nutrients that you need to make bone. The magnetic field therapy takes all of that stuff and makes it faster, makes it stronger. In other words, it makes it healthier. So combining these things become important. And then combining it with other therapies like hyperbaric or even acupuncture for that matter. Combining these things often works better. So, for example, we know that ozone combined with magnetic field therapy works better than either one alone. And this is true about most other modalities too. So it's very safe to combine with almost anything. What I found, though, is that as people start doing magnetic field therapy, they often drop off other therapies as they're getting better. So what happens as you start to feel better, you say, well, do I need to do this? Do I need to do the following? Well, never give up on your nutrition. Never give up on your sleep. Never give up on getting a reasonable level of activity. And then if you combine magnetic field therapy, everything tends to work faster.
So we've covered a lot. And some people are going, well, what did he even say? These C fibers and, so it can be a bit overwhelming. You and I, we talk this talk, you more than I do. I mean, this is your thing. You're the expert. Where we want them to go to your website and learn more. What resources on your website would you encourage them to check out? You mentioned a blog, I think, an article. What are some of the things you think, Dr. Pawluk, that would be a way for them to be able to break this down in a way, to make it easier for them to understand what we're talking about?
Well, for those who are interested and have specific needs, there are lots of blogs. There's an education section, and the education section goes into some of the basic concepts of magnetic field therapies. One of the key blogs on drpawluk.com is the adenosine blog. It talks about adenosine, inflammation, and pain. So because adenosine is critical to dealing with inflammation, and it's critical then to dealing with all the secondary problems associated with that. There's also a product comparison chart on the home page.
Right.
And what you could do then is you could look at all the different devices that I've worked with and I've used and recommend. And then people can get a consultation as well. So there's a section on there about getting a consultation. So I don't want somebody who wants to only spend $10 on a machine to spend half an hour of my time. Because if you're not committed, I'm not committed. Right? As we talked about at the beginning, I'm not your doctor. You're your doctor. I'm your consultant. So you got to take care of yourself. And that means you may have to make an investment in something that you're going to be using probably for the rest of your life. Even though this need has gone away, it's still going to help your body in many other ways. I jokingly tell people that the biggest risk with magnetic field therapy is the urge to put on a cape. And you can even put on as many capes as you want. Just don't try to jump over anything tall. So magnetic field therapy can just generally make you feel so much better in so many different ways.
So for the audience, I want to encourage you to go to Dr. Pawluk's website, drpawluk.com, and learn more about this technology. I think it's a perfect fit. I really, when I found out about his work, I was adamant about getting him on this summit, because I think people need to know about this technology. It's a tool that, combined with the right diet and the right nutritional supplements, things that we need to do to rebuild the body, it's a perfect fit for fibromyalgia. And I want to just make sure that no one misses out on the opportunity to learn more. And then if it resonates with them, to be able to benefit from this technology.
Now, just to add to what you just said, in addition to the website, you mentioned the book, Supercharge Your Health.
Yes.
The website is not as clear about what device to use for your problem. So fortunately, the Supercharge Your Health book, we wrote that book with that idea in mind. Okay, I have this problem. What device should I get? What magnetic therapy system do I need? How strong does it need to be? Etc. So that book then gives you some guidance on what the best equipment is going to be for you. And then on top of that, I have recommendations for 80 different health conditions. So that becomes, in a sense, a resource, a manual for you. And it has an appendix in the book about the adenosine blog. It also has something that's very, very important. Most people can't jump off the edge of jump into a pool on the deep end unless they know how to swim. I wouldn't recommend it. So magnetic field therapy is a stressor to the body. It's going to tell your body to work. It's requiring your body to work, and to heal yourself, you have to work. The problem is that you can't get off the couch and run a marathon tomorrow. You have to train, and magnetic field therapy, in a sense, is training. So it's a gradual process of being able to go to the maximum intensity and the maximum time, because that's when the repair and the healing happens the fastest. But you have to get there gradually, because you could overwhelm your body. And fibromyalgia particularly, and if you have a chronic fatigue syndrome and you have MCS or MCAS, then you have a whole lot of other things going on from an inflammation perspective. And you have to sort of crawl before you run, or you walk. And the Supercharger book has some of that information in it. And again, it gives you some advice about what would be best. For those who are serious and are willing to spend the money that they should be spending for their health, and we're typically talking about $5,000, $4,000, $5,000 for a good magnetic therapy system. Now, you can buy a $5,000 magnetic system that's not good. And there are plenty of them out there because they're not strong enough.
Right.
All right. So if you're going to spend that kind of money, educate yourself on what the systems are that can do that kind of work for you, that you're going to benefit from.
And so in closing, I just, again, still want to encourage people to check out. So obviously want to check out your book. And I want to thank you for sharing this, this information. I really think it could be a game changer for so many people out there that are looking for answers and just can't find them. So thank you so much for being part of this summit.
Thank you very much for having me here and sharing with your followers, your listeners, your viewers, your tribe.
So thanks for joining us on the summit today, and look forward to sharing some more interviews with you coming up soon.
Thanks for joining me on the PEMF Effect. I hope today's conversation gave you new tools, insights, and inspiration to take control of your health. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could benefit from PEMF therapy and holistic healing. Your body has the power to repair, recover, and thrive. Sometimes it just needs the right charge. Until next time, stay curious, stay proactive, and keep powering up to better health.